Hello and welcome to Analog Tabletop, and this is my review of Armpal.
Welcome to Analog Tabletop.
Compensation for this review was given in the form of a review copy of this game. The version I'm looking at today is a prototype version. For the final version, changes may be put in. Before we talk more about this, I would like to show you that I actually built the thing. I'll go into more detail about that and my construction tips later, but first here's an overview. This is a 1 to 4 player game. It has more than 300 parts, requires no glue, and the robotic arms have multiple points of articulation. It is recommended to be built by someone ages 14 plus, but once it is built, can be operated by someone 9 plus. Okay, let's get to it and build this thing. Altogether, it took me 4 days to build for a total of about 30 hours. If you get this kit, I do not recommend you marathon the build like I did for this review. It was exhausting putting it all together, even though I was just sitting in a chair and pushing tiny pieces together. To be fair, it is quite hard to push some of these pieces together. They fit together very tightly, especially the rubber hoses and valves on the syringe-like pieces. My hands legitimately hurt at the end of every day from forcing the pieces together. In one instance, I ended up breaking the nozzle because it was so hard to put on. To fix it, I put some plumber's tape on a thick screw and screwed it into the hole after I filled it with water. It works surprisingly well, and since it's hidden behind a flap, it doesn't ruin the aesthetic much. So if you end up breaking an outlet nozzle as well, that might work for you. I never built a kit as complicated as this before, but I didn't feel overwhelmed at all while building it. If you can put together a Lego kit or a wooden insert for a board game, or maybe a complicated miniature, then you can probably handle this too. It just has more parts and takes longer. The largest part of this product is about building the arms and learning a little about how a robot arm functions, along with the hydraulics. The major problem I had with building the game are the instructions. Now before I say anything, I need to state that they have updated the instructions, but for the first 3/4 of my build, I used the older version of the instructions that came bundled with the kit. Then the company sent me a link to a PDF of the updated instruction booklet, which is improved, but still has some issues that I saw looking back at it. In the booklet, 80% of the time, the pieces are labeled with an arrow, which is easy to read, but sometimes the pieces are only labeled on the part themselves, which uses a different font with an outline style. And the printer they used, it made it extremely hard to read those. The rulebook could use some extra words describing the pictures, and the whole booklet could use some extra explanation at times. I could understand if they wanted to make the whole thing language independent, but there are English instructions throughout the book, so I don't feel like that's a huge issue. The instructions that were there could use some proofreading. It sounds like it was written by Google Translate right now. My biggest complaint is the instructions for filling the hydraulics with water. They are very confusing, and I just ended up ignoring the instructions completely and figuring it out on my own. Once I did that though, the instructions did make more sense, but it took a while to discern what the pictures meant in the booklet. A few pieces are actually labeled differently in the rulebook. For example, the rulebook tells you need C36, but the piece is actually labeled C09. This wasn't the actual piece, probably, I don't remember exactly, but this did happen at least twice. I also don't know if it was fixed in the updated version, because, like I said, I don't fully remember those pieces. Hopefully, the developers work on the instruction booklet before the full release. Since they sent me a second revision in the middle of my build, I'm confident that more improvements are still coming. Let's move off the instruction booklet itself, though, and talk about the pieces. The boards are logically designed, though. For each part you are building, the pieces generally are all on the same board, and the boards are labeled to what pieces they have on them. They are made of a sturdy material, and overall the project is well designed. Pieces fit together well for the most part, except for a few pieces that were too tight and ended up using an X-Acto knife to cut away some material from the hole. That being said, it's much better for things to be too tight than be too loose. It's easier to remove material than it is to add it back in later. Overall, I had a lot of fun putting this together, and I learned more than I expected from the mechanics involved. While operating the arm, it does tend to creak a little bit. I think this could be fixed by using some extra reinforcement. I would not recommend this for anyone under the age of 14, though. This was a lot of work, and for younger children, this would probably get frustrating and end up giving up before finishing. But if you are into building things and like learning, this is a great project for you. Just be sure you're ready for the time investment. The reason they chose us to do a preview and not a kit builder channel is that they are selling this as a tabletop game. This is similar to a dexterity physical skill game such as a tabletop soccer or crokinole or something like that. Once you build it, you do have 2 working mechanical arms, which can be fun to play with. There weren't any instructions for playing in it that we received with our review copy, but they did give us a video with 3 different play modes. Stack Tower, where 2 players use the claw and alternate picking up wood blocks that are provided and put on the stack in the middle. If a player can't place a block or knocks over the tower, the other player wins. Excavator is where you use the excavator bucket attachment and scoop up whatever you have. We ended up using popcorn kernels, and you place that into your side of the seesaw. And whoever has the most weight within whatever time limit is the winner. In the magnetic crane race, we put a pile of paper clips, which were not provided, in the middle of the mat, and see who can gather the most by using the seesaw. The 3 game modes provided are okay, but pretty basic and just give you an idea of how the attachment works and what you can do with them. For more fun, they also recommend for you to experiment and make up your own games using the stuff they provide in the box. Controlling the arms is rather difficult on multiple levels. First of all, the control mechanisms are unintuitive to me. I don't think a real crane arm has this weird control scheme. You do get used to it after a while, but I never felt confident about what will happen when they pull a lever in a certain way. Another difficulty is it is very easy to lower the head too far in both of the axes and essentially push yourself up with the arm, which usually leads to your base sliding around, which ends up happening a lot. I also wish that the tubing was longer, detached from the arm. You can't move the control arms very far away from the arm itself. I followed the measurements very carefully for the tubing, but some of the pieces ended up with more slack than others. While filling everything with water is quite hard to do perfectly, it took me at least 2 tries with most of the lines to get into a decent state. It's hard to end up with no air left in the system, which makes the parts less responsive. If one of the arms is better filled and responds better, then that player will have an advantage in any game that they might play. To move the arms effectively, you need to adjust the controls kind of slowly. If you try to jerk them around, it's not going to work very well. A light touch is needed to get the arm to move in a predictable way. Overall, it's fun trying to move the arms around and use the various attachments, but it does take time to get used to. If you plan on building this or any kit of this nature, here are some tips for putting it together. First of all, there are pieces that you are supposed to apply wax to in order to reduce friction between the rubbing pieces. For some reason, I thought you had to melt the wax onto the pieces, which isn't the case at all. You can just rub the candle or whatever on the piece to get a good coating. This isn't their fault. It doesn't say to do that anywhere, but this was just my ignorance. But now you won't make the same mistake. Also, don't apply the wax until you know which surfaces are going to be rubbing together. From the pictures in the book, it isn't always clear what part of the piece in the diagram is pointing to or what exactly you are building. So it would be a good idea to go a few pages ahead to see where the parts will be rubbing. This is another good example of where some additional words could help clarify the instructions. I've probably come off sounding like I hate this product, but I don't. It's quite the opposite. I think it's a fun and interesting product. I just think it has some issues and could benefit from a little more work and tweaking going into it. The thing I'm most interested in is a feature I didn't have time to do myself for this review, and that is painting it. I think having each arm painted in a unique color scheme would make this look even better on the table. Maybe even some sponsorship decals on them for teams. Overall, I think this is a cool project for someone to build if they like this sort of thing, and definitely a piece in your collection that people will point to and ask to play. But if you are in it solely for the game and aren't into building projects, maybe get a friend to put it together for you, or just pass on this one. I hope you enjoyed this review for Armpal. If you are new to our channel, please press the subscribe button. It really helps us out. And that way, other people looking for board game content can get recommendations for our videos. And I'll see you next time on Analog Tabletop. Thanks for watching.